Yo, so if you're like me, then you like video games. They're a great pastime for when you want to unwind or get your blood boiling, and I know millions of people think the same way, like you. There's thousands of games to choose from to play from a whole lot of genres, and some of your favorite games have been made and or published by long-standing publishers and developers. One of those is Activision Blizzard, which is made up of Activision, Blizzard Entertainment, and a few other subsidiaries. They own Call of Duty, Crash Bandicoot, Guitar Hero, Skylanders, Spyro the Dragon, Tony Hawk's, Diablo, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, Overwatch, StarCraft, Warcraft, and Candy Crush. These are massive series jammed with games of varying genres and quality. And recently, a massive controversy regarding Overwatch 2 sprung up in early May of 2023 from what seemed like out of nowhere. But, from knowing about some of the recent controversies that have plagued this company, you'll quickly understand how we got here. And that's what led me to wanting to make this video, so we can look at some of the worst controversies this company's got under its belt. And as the title suggests, we'll be looking at some of the Activision and Blizzard side of things for the most part, not the other subsidiaries. Oh, and if you end up enjoying my content, why not consider subscribing? I'm nearing 50,000 subs, so that would be pretty cool to see. And without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start off at BlizzCon 2018, November 2nd to November 3rd. It was just like any BlizzCon. There were activities, announcements, esports, and you could see it all virtually for the small price of $49.99, or be there in person for $199. That's just highway robbery. But it was all worth paying that, right? I mean, being there and seeing the announcement of Warcraft 3 Reforged, a remake of the original, would have been, well, interesting in hindsight. Don't worry, we'll get to that game very soon. But it wasn't as interesting as being there to see the reveal of a new Diablo game, Diablo Immortal, a free-to-play mobile game that combines the Diablo formula with a typical mobile game one. So, reception for this news wasn't great. I mean, even during the event there was backlash, booing, and quotes that have gone down in history.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones,
got a phone.
right?
You can play on your tablet too.
This was said in response to a guy asking if the game was going to come out on PC. It's such a salty and immature response to a perfectly reasonable question. The game series has always been on PC, so it would have been jarring to hear that the game was coming out on a device it's never released on.
Hey, just was wondering, is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke?
No, it's a fully fledged Diablo experience on mobile.
And this quote? A beautifully delivered joke that echoes how people would have been feeling at the time for reasons like the one I mentioned before. Diablo 3 came out in 2012, so people were eager for a big and meaty game like Diablo 4, not a mobile game that was likely to be shallow and riddled with microtransactions. So you can see how this game's reveal was controversial. But how was the game received when it released on June 2nd, 2022? Well, firstly, it was released on PC, day one, most likely due to the backlash it got during its reveal for being mobile only. And of course it was riddled with microtransactions and terrible progression systems just like any free-to-play mobile game. You know, it had one of those progression systems that has you playing the repetitive game like a chore or a job over days, weeks, or even years. Or you could pay tens, hundreds, or thousands of dollars to skip parts of the grind. So naturally, it received a lot of backlash and negative reviews from players. Oh, but a lot of money anyway. And we can't talk about this game without talking about the massive controversy surrounding the streamer, Quinn. He spent a bit over 25,000 New Zealand dollars to roll for a 5 out of 5 star gem. These gems are needed to help max out your character's stats, something you should aim for in the late game. I don't know about you, but my brain hurts just thinking about how much better that money could have been spent. Like on my Patreon, patreon.com/sunfloweryt. But anyway, this video was written up before Diablo 4 had come out, and at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if it launched terribly or flawed in many ways. Who's ready for server and connection issues? Was I right? And now we move on to 2019 and the popular online card game Hearthstone. The game isn't the star of the show here, more the people involved. You see, in October of 2019, the Hearthstone Grandmasters tournament was being streamed from Taiwan. During an interview with the player best known as Blitzchung, Chung used part of the interview to profess his support for the Hong Kong protests that occurred during 2019 and 2020. So you're probably thinking, what's the big controversy here? Well, soon afterwards, Chung was disqualified from the tournament, had to forfeit his winnings to date, and was banned for a year. That was already brutal enough, but it doesn't end there. The two shoutcasters that conducted the interview were given similar bans for some reason. These bans were completely unreasonable for Chung's actions. A little warning could have sufficed, if anything. The shoutcasters being thrown under the bus too makes no sense. What were they supposed to do? Were they expected to go on a pro-Chinese rant or cut Chung off? Blizzard's justification for this was because they don't tolerate players bringing themselves into public disrepute, offend a portion or group of the public, or otherwise damage Blizzard's image. Ironically, Blizzard's response is what offended the public and damaged Blizzard's image. Players, employees, and people in general were pissed, and rightfully so, since it looked like Blizzard had given in to censorship for the Chinese government. There were protests against Blizzard's actions, and the whole situation caught the eyes of US lawmakers who were concerned that Blizzard was letting China dictate how it handled free speech. Soon after, Blizzard issued an apology and explained that all of this had nothing to do with censoring to appease China, and everyone's bans were reduced to 6 months. That's still so bad. And whether you believe that whole not censoring business is up to you, but what's for certain is that this controversy severely damaged Blizzard's reputation with fans and people alike. But now, let's go back to 2018's BlizzCon and look at the other game that was announced that year, Warcraft 3 Reforged. You know, it seemed to be received pretty well at the convention, and why wouldn't it be? It was shown to be the same real-time strategy fantasy game, but with new, higher quality animations, cutscenes, textures, and voice acting. So that's how the game was released. Right? They wouldn't just show things that aren't in the game to their fans as a way of getting pre-orders now, would they? Well, that's where the controversy begins. Along with the BlizzCon preview not resembling the final result, or where have we seen that before? The final result was a downgrade from that, and is considered a downgrade from the original game. This Reddit post by Walsop1 sums it all up very nicely. No records or stats to look up, no automated tournaments or tournament rewards, no way to be competitive, broken matchmaking on release, no surprises there, breaks compatibility with custom maps, lots of unoptimizations, a 30GB patch for the game whether you own Classic or Reforged, and I could go on and on. So I'll leave the link to that Reddit post in the video's description. But the worst part is that because of Reforged, the old game and client suffer from Reforged's problems. So really, if you bought Reforged, you were just paying for new graphics for the most part. Naturally, people were pissed and disappointed with the game's release. It really echoes the increasing decline of the respect for the consumer and the profit over fun mentality that so many publishers seem to follow. Another awesome trend that companies seem to be doing more is having an apology ready for when they release their bad products. Warcraft 3 Reforged was no exception, and it was just so ass. Just so ass. So for creating a false preview of the Reforged version in 2018, ruining aspects of the original game and screwing over the consumers, you can guess how this all went down. So now we're jumping into arguably the worst controversy this company has ever had, and it's a pretty serious topic in general. The 2021 allegations. These allegations consist of sexual harassment, employment discrimination, and retaliation, which is described as a deliberate desire to cause harm to an organization. Conditions of employment regarding compensation, assignment, promotion, and termination, company leadership failing to step in and prevent discrimination, harassment, and retaliation were all brought up. The workplace culture was described as frat boy too. There are a few significant incidents that have been linked to all of this that always come to mind when revisiting this controversy. Firstly, breast milk stored in the nursing area's fridges were being stolen by an employee, allegedly. That's foul, and the thief may have gloated about this on 4chan before these allegations even came to light. There was also an employee that was noted to have ended her own life while on a business trip with her male supervisor. She was subjected to what was described as intense sexual harassment before her passing. I hope she's resting well, and you don't need me to tell you how terrible this loss of life is. There's also the infamous Cosby Suite, the name for Alex Afrasiabis, the former senior creative director for World of Warcraft's hotel room for BlizzCon 2013. This name is a clear reference to Bill Cosby, and we all know about the terrible things he did, so you can already guess as to what this room was for. Allegedly, this photo of these higher-ups posing with a photo of Cosby at BlizzCon 2013 is the Cosby Suite. Just look at these guys. This image is infuriating to look at, and it's a glimpse into what happens when power gets to the heads of evil people. Here's another image of Alex's Facebook account captioned, Day 0, preparations made, Cosby Suite in effect. And then we have this image, a screenshot from a group chat. I'm gathering the hot chicks for the cause. Bring 'em. Greg, you on the way? You can't marry all of them, Alex. I can. I'm Middle Eastern. You misspelled fuck. At Hilton Bar. Come up to the cause. They're just so bad in the actual term cringe to look at and wrap my head around. Why would you even speak and act like this? Mics were dropped. Lol. I think more than mics were dropped, like names and jobs. One of the biggest names being Jesse McCree. You may be looking at that name and thinking, that's the Overwatch cowboy man. What's going on here? Well, that character was named after this guy, this McCree, and now the character goes by Cassidy. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of a chain of events and consequences stemming from this whole controversy. Lawsuits, higher-ups stepping down from the company, employee walkouts, current and former employee responses and admissions, responses from Activision Blizzard, the company's hiring of the legal firm Wilmer Hale, best known for union busting, players walking away from the company's games, players speaking out on the situation, and a whole lot more. This whole controversy shook the company and the perception of it, as well as the perceptions of video game companies in general. How many other gaming companies have higher-ups and employees who create these frat boy cultures and ruin the lives of others? After all, some of this stuff like the Cosby Suite happened in 2013, but was mentioned to an Activision Blizzard spokesperson by an employee in 2020, and then became public in 2021. So we wouldn't even know if these things were happening unless it went public. And as issues like these continue to come to light, hopefully we'll see some change and people learn from past mistakes. Let's take a look at a different controversy now, one that's less serious but more dystopian. King's diversity tool. In May of 2022, Blizzard Entertainment released a blog post about the tool developed by King, the subsidiary best known for being in charge of the Candy Crush series, and by MIT Game Lab. As described by Jacqueline Chomatas, King's globalization project manager, the tool was used as a measurement device to analyze how diverse characters are compared to the norm. There were examples of the tool being used and even mention of the Overwatch 2 team dabbling into it. There was also a plan to make this tool available for the whole industry, but the plan seemed to have fallen through because of the deserved backlash this tool got. As well, some Blizzard employees who worked on Overwatch denied that the tool was ever used, despite the blog post stating that the team used it for Overwatch 2. And naturally, the tool was criticized online. The biggest piece of criticism was about the tool itself. Why create a tool that rates how diverse a character is when you could just hire a diverse group of thinkers to do it for you instead? The tool's rating scale was brought into question as well, and for good reason. For starters, these are what the tool grades characters on: culture, ethnicity, age, ability, body type, gender identity, and sexual orientation. With this image comes 3 Overwatch characters used as examples: Zarya, Lucio, and Torbjorn. Ratings on each section go from 0 to 10 and don't really explain why, since we don't have a definition of what the norm is that this rating is based off of. Zarya and Lucio have very unique ability kits, but they're rated at a 0, meanwhile Torbjorn's is rated really high, despite some similarities with TF2's Engineer. Torbjorn is also rated high in the age department. He's noted to be 57. What's so out of the norm about being 57? I guess on a battlefield? Sure, but is that what the tool is telling us? What about ethnicity? Lucio is at a 5 or 6, but Zarya and Torbjorn are at a 0? Why? Zarya is Russian, Torbjorn is Swedish, and Lucio is Brazilian. Is this tool telling us that being Brazilian isn't the norm? What about gender identity? Zarya is the only one with a rating that isn't 0. But how does that play into her character? I've never heard her bring it up in a voice line or anything really. Is the tool implying that short, pink hair with shaved sides does it? Her buff body? Tattoos? Or clothing? It's all so dystopian and dehumanizing to have human aspects, some of which can't be changed, be rated on a scale of 0 to 10 as diverse or not. You could also make the argument that diverse and norm are being related to good and bad. It might be a bit of a stretch, but on a rating scale, 10 is usually good, with 0 being the worst, meaning that diverse is good and norm is bad. But there's more. This image of Anna being graded, and as we can see, there's even more stats to look at like race, cognitive ability, physical ability, etc. Her culture, race, and age are seen as a 7 out of 10 for diversity, and her gender identity is a 5. And now looking at the previous image we saw that Zarya had a 5, but Lucio and Torbjorn had 0s. Is the tool suggesting that being a woman makes you a 5 at minimum and a man a 0? Cognitive ability, body type, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic background is a 0 for Anna as well. I guess I didn't realize that being reasonable or slim and curvy was the norm. Has whoever was using this tool been on the internet or gone outside to see that this isn't the case? Jokes aside, well, not really, but it's all just odd as to why this tool was made. And with no clear definition of what the norm is, who knows what it could relate to? Could it mean a real life norm? Could it mean a video game norm? Who knows? Now, before we get into the final controversy, the big Overwatch 2 2023 one, I wanted to point out something interesting that was controversial at the time when it happened. July 2010. Real ID. Blizzard had announced that they were making a change to their forums so that users had to identify themselves with their real names. This was labeled as an epic fail, with a Blizzard employee revealing his real name to show that it was all fine. And then he was doxxed soon after. Don't give gamers your real name to try and prove a point. They will attempt to ruin your life. But anyway, the stated reason for this change was so players who had relationships outside of the games could find each other easier across other Blizzard games, like a chat service that goes cross-game, according to Blizzard's president at the time, Michael Morhaime. There were other reasons too, like for parental controls, but it's interesting to me that this used to be generally controversial, sharing your real name online. Now the majority of us just do it without any question. And that all brings us to Overwatch 2's cancelled PvE hero mode shown in 2019. The big reason I wanted to make this video. Boom! Gone. No more highly anticipated hero mode as of May 2023. It was going to be released with the game, but then it got delayed, and now it's been cancelled. Players were reeled in, and now they have to sit there playing the watered down 5v5 version of the game if they want an official Overwatch experience. All of the effort and development time that went into it over many years is just abandoned. Oh, but not to worry, Overwatch's PvE events will still return, the same ones that have shown up in the series for years now, and some new ones. Eventually. Or maybe they'll be cancelled as well. I've always found Overwatch's PvE to be average at best, but the idea for hero mode was cool enough. You'd complete missions playing as Overwatch characters in a group of up to 4 players, level up your characters, upgrade their skills, etc. It could have been something worth making a sequel for, but of course, the more important reason for a sequel was most likely to bring in a new form of monetization. The money, time, and soul-sucking battle pass and expensive bundles that entice players into throwing money at the game. The worst part about them is having to unlock the game's new heroes by either buying it through the battle pass tier skips, or by slowly grinding the battle pass for them, or by doing challenges. It wouldn't be as bad if the game didn't have heroes that countered each other. Locking a possible counter to the matchup you're playing is terrible when you can switch characters on the fly. You might also be thinking that actually, none of the monetization is related to the cancellation of the hero mode, but it might be. Making the hero mode has taken a lot of time and probably a lot of other resources like money and labor that could go into something else. Well, why put it into something else? Because according to Jared News, Overwatch's executive producer, development of the PvE experience hasn't progressed as much as they'd like it to have. It seems there was a clear lack of direction as well, and so the difficult choice was made. Continue to pour all that effort into the hero mode, or focus efforts on the live service of the game. What will make more money? The live service? Yes. It's a shame, and I think I can speak for myself and many others here, but Overwatch can be fun. I loved playing Overwatch 1 when it first came out, and when Overwatch 2 launched, it just wasn't the same. It had its moments, but it was definitely watered down. And it's crazy to think that the loot box system they used to have is somehow better than this battle pass and bundle crap. And there we have it. That's that. Some of the worst and biggest controversies that Activision Blizzard has gotten themselves into. It was like a trip down a terrible memory lane, and a lot of them seem unreal. Unfortunately too, most of these can be summed up as a lack of care from those in charge of overseeing the games that are published and overseeing the safety of the company's developers and employees. Ay, this company has stooped so low and doesn't seem like it's going to stop anytime soon. Was I right about Diablo 4 too? And I know that this video has been pretty doom and gloom, so I want to leave it on a more brighter note. As players of Activision Blizzard's games, we don't have to put up with the decline in quality and services their games provide us. And if things don't change on a leadership level at their company offices, past events will just happen again and again. The cycle needs to be broken, right? An effective way to do all of this would be to hit upper management where it hurts, their wallets, would it not? Wait for reviews of games to come out before committing to purchasing a full price game, expand your horizons to other games and developer studios more accepting of your money, and don't give in to the terrible monetization methods free games have. I'd be a hypocrite if I said that I've never thrown money at microtransactions or free game offers, but there's definitely better ways than this to go about it. Your money and time can be put to so much better use. This can also be applied on how you could treat the gaming industry in general as well. And I'm not saying to do all of this so strictly, you know, baby steps. So if you care, why not do something about it? And I don't know about you, but it does feel nice to clear a backlog of games instead of constantly adding to it. The more and more I get older, the more I realize just how hard it can be to earn money and save it when I need it. So focusing on the backlog is quite nice. But anyway, that's the video, and I hope you learned something about the controversies Activision Blizzard has been involved in. And if you want to see more from me, why not consider subscribing? I said at the start of the video that I was almost at 50,000 subscribers, so that would be great to hit. The 50,000 subscriber special will be a blast. Plus, I also have a massive backlog of videos if you want to check those out too. Anyway, here's the usual massive shout out to my patrons. You guys are absolute legends. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch ya in the next one.